You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are only things that makes it official. God, I'm glad I don't have to do that after 14 or 15 years of doing it. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. Yes, I used to do the Chris Voss Show. Those of you remember I'd sing that part, but we turned over an opera singer because, I don't know, it just sounded better, eh? Plus, I just love that Iron Lady from the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. Anyway, guys, refer the show to your family, friends, or relatives. Don't make us come knock on your door in the middle of the night and threaten to, make you listen to more episodes of the Chris Voss Show. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and Chris Voss, Facebook.com. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today's featured author comes to us from bookstolifemarketing.co.uk. With expert publishing to strategic marketing, they help authors reach their audience and maximize their book's success. Today, an amazing young man on the show. We're talking about his latest book. Just came out June 3rd, 2025. Tim Preston joins us on the show. He is the author of the newest book to come out, CoreSelf Positioning to Get on the Same Page. Literally 8 steps that refine our current position and identify our best action plan. We're going to get into all the good stuff there and all the deets, as the kids say. I don't know what the hell the kids say anymore. Since co-founding Simple, Not Easy, LLC in 2017 with Jonathan, Tim's passion for creating and working with businesses has evolved CSM into core self-positioning and same page partnership for organizations, their vendors, and clients. CSP allows companies to grow and leverage their most important asset, their people. What? I thought we just fire those folks. Isn't that what we do for shareholder value? Anyway, don't do that, folks. A unique benefit of CoreSelf approach is that professional team members can utilize the same tool in their professionalized growth and clarity. So we're going to get into it with Tim. Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Good to have you as well. Give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
What's the what?
Give us your .coms and what's inside the new book.
The .coms are simplenoteasy.org is the website. We've been there for quite a few years. And then CoreSelfPositioning.com is the other website as well that will bring you to Simple Not Easy. What's inside the book? It's a lot. It's kind of
you wrote it.
I know it's kind of it's 3 books in one, and I would say this about that: we took an opposite approach than most of the books I see. We actually give the reader, the listener, viewer, a roadmap that they can actually self-direct in about 60 minutes and actually use the tool. Support it with all the reasons it works. If people want to know, we can unpeel the onion and tell them more. So core self mapping is getting on the same page with yourself. Core self positioning is getting on the same page with another or others, whether it's a partnership or an organization. And then core self journaling is in the book, and that's just a way to sharpen the saw, to practice that mental skill set.
So are those the 3 sections of the book, or 3 books in one that you were mentioning then?
They are, as a matter of fact, yes.
So there's the core. And when you refer to core self, those listening right now, core self is one word. So it's core self slammed together. What made you come up with these premise of these words that you're playing on to sell your idea?
Well, my partner, Jonathan Thomas, spent 40, 50 years as a clinical therapist. 10 of those years were in a hospital working with young children and troubled parents and troubled children. And he was using this sitting across from somebody for years, and just kind of, I think he didn't mind being a walking stick, didn't want to be a crutch. So he would visually, he's visual like I am. He would write out this map, if you will, and he would share it with them when they're done. So it sounds like this is what you're saying. Is this what it looks like?
Oh,
and I'd met Jonathan 15 years ago now, and he said 3 words to me that were interesting. He says, "Everything I'm going to teach you is simple, not easy," and those are 2 words that don't usually go together. And that brainstormed. And so about 7 years ago, we had sold a company. I was fortunate. I reached out to him. I said, "I think the world needs your book by the same title." And here we are 7 years later. This book is in everybody's hands.
Simple, not easy. That's the lead title on my Tinder.
Well, it's kind of inverted, right? It's not easy to pause in our patterns in our life and the autopilot that we live on, but it is simple, and we've given the world a worksheet that they can do that with.
I'm thinking about changing my Tinder though to easy, but not simple. Might work out. Who knows? So now, who does this apply to? Are we talking about just people in their everyday life? Are we talking about managerial, CEO, leadership type stuff? Where are we at on who this applies to in the food chain of life?
The CoreSelf work applies to everyone, and that's part of the interesting thing I'm doing. I'm focusing on hardware and software and technology, which is where I've come from in my last career. Jonathan is taking it to educational schools and systems, primarily high schoolers, 15 to 17. And we know there's quite a bit of turmoil over there after COVID and even with this whole AI movement. So it applies to everybody, and therein lies the challenge. When you have something that applies to everybody, you have to really pick your horses and how you're going to approach the market. Yeah.
And so you guys talk about positioning, literally 8 steps that can refine your current position. Yes. Do you want to tease a couple of these steps out to us, or maybe some of your favorites that you like particularly?
That's a great question.
We want people to buy the book. So
yes.
So tell them everything.
It's an easy, accessible framework. The first 4 steps are more about observing and activating a part of your conscious part of your brain that we refer to as the internal observer. Yeah. The second 4 steps are adding narrative, where we actually use language. So that's what makes it apply anywhere in the world. And both halves of these steps reinforce each other. So if I was going to say, well, here's the premise, and here's a teaser, but not really a teaser. It's part of it. If a listener or viewer was to think of a single specific situation, and we all have one bubbling around, but not like 5. Pick one in your mind. And then if you were to take a blank piece of paper and draw a triangle, put yourself at the top and ask yourself, who are 2 other people that are involved in this single specific situation? That's the first step. Step 1 is who else isn't besides yourself is involved. And then the second step is what we call the bottom circle. It refers to emotional energy and sensations. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, where the outside of the circle, the rim, is a bad place to be. High energy, low energy, high tension. And the center of that circle is your core self, is 10, which is a place of high energy, low tension. Ask yourself these 2 questions and answer them on a scale of 1 to 10. Where am I now in this situation, and where do I want to be? And it's in that gap, so where the who becomes where, and then answering those 2 questions that activates a part of your brain, a conscious part of your brain, called that internal observer. And so it's teaching folks how to activate that part of their brain that knows all their experiences, all their values, all the choices they've made in life, and alternate choices that they potentially could make for future decisions that are more based on their values. So that's a lot, I think, but I think it's pretty easy to understand. I hope it was.
Yeah. Does it help you see maybe any scotomas, like blind spots you may have? Like sometimes when I'm trying to innovate, I'll ask my staff, I'm like, is this really a good idea, or am I just smoking my own stuff?
Yeah, it can be used to get unstuck or overcome challenges and problems, but it can also be used, I like, in organizations where you're brainstorming, you're trying to be innovative.
Yeah.
So it can work in both places. I think we all generally gravitate to, I've got a problem I'm trying to fix. And it might be personal, it might be a relationship. And these days we've got, in my humble opinion, too many people running to AI. Well, there's just a study done in April of 25 where the number 1 use of AI today, which is fascinating and frightening, is for therapy and companionship.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of work and reading on that lately and writing. Jonathan and I both have. It's really interesting. AI is a great affirmator.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great mirror, but it's not a compass. And I think what CoreSelf mapping brings to the equation, it is the compass, it is the map.
Okay.
And if you can combine those two, you can get some really powerful movement.
Yeah, I have been surprised at and maybe this is because of COVID. It seems like, I have a big dating group too, and it seems like COVID really took away a lot of people's ability to know how to socialize and how to interact human to human.
Yes.
It created a lot of people, even people my age, where we grew up in a kind of pre-social media world. We know what we actually had to talk to each other and shit back then. We weren't looking at our phones, but a lot of people, they have anxiety about social stuff. And then I have friends my age that they just talk to ChatGPT all day long.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you okay? And it's kind of good for some senior citizen friends of mine, because they're old and they're cranky like me. I'm getting there. They're always yelling at the kids to get off the lawn. And so it makes a good companion. But, we've recently seen some things, and you may have seen this as well, but there's recent reporting now. There was a young man, I believe he was on the spectrum or autistic. And, basically the AI will kind of encourage what you're trying to get encouraged. Well, it turned him to violence and self-harm, and I believe he unalived himself. And so they're kind of concerned, because it was actually going, well, yeah, sure, that sounds like a good idea, and something to that effect. And then there's some other, definitely tragic. And there's some other things going on that I think I read about that just recently came out this morning, where they were, AI was suggesting some stuff. I mean, recently we've known that Grok has been going off the wall with, white nationalist, racist stuff, and, practically doing whatever. And it's kind of interesting how it can go down some pathways.
Yeah.
But yeah, AI, it's good, but I'm not sure I'd want to talk to it all day long or trust it.
It can only, here's the thing. I think, it's a great external resource. But here's the thing is your internal observer. Here's the thing that your internal observer in CoreSelf mapping can give individuals and organizations that AI can't. AI doesn't understand how we make meaning in life. It doesn't understand our values, and it surely doesn't understand our potential.
Yeah.
And, and even if I do think you could use some great resources. Like, I've been journaling now for 5 years after meeting Jonathan, and I can see the benefit of that. And didn't want to be the person that says, do as I say, not as I do. So part of it when I started was an experiment. And some of those experiments are in the book as well. But here are some really interesting places I think that we could use AI. It will never know everything about me unless somehow I told it. But what we could do is and I'm experimenting this now, take 3 months, a year of my journaling and ask it to look for patterns or holes in the pattern in my life.
Really?
Right. And I think it would do that quickly. And then you could do things like, you could say, okay, well, I'm working in this area of my life right now. This, Franklin would have called them virtues, but I'm working on this virtue or this goal right now. What are some areas and resources I could do to get better at this? And I think when used in that way, it's got huge potential.
Yeah. Especially if it could learn to see through blind spots and stuff, right?
Yeah. Sometimes if we're writing, the blind spots are there. We just don't see them.
Oh yeah. I constantly am trying to figure out, where that is. Now I noticed in the book, it comes with a workshop included. Complete your CoreSelf map in 60 minutes. Tell us what that is and how that works and all that good stuff.
The short answer. Well, I can tell you the nemesis of where it came from or not.
Sure.
It was really interesting. Rick Rubin talks about, in his great book about creativity. He talks about there's a lot of great work in the world that we'll never see from artists because that's their relief, that's their vent. And so I knew about that, and I came from software as a reseller, and we had kind of finished the book. We'd sent it off to the editor in February, and then my partner Jonathan, at the ripe age of 78, started getting nervous. He's like, "What if they don't like what we gave them? What if they change it?" And I'm like, "Jonathan, you've been doing this for 40 years. You know it works. We know it works."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I come from software. Let's beta test it." So we took the first, we took the first chapter, CoreSelf mapping, and we broke it down into, 30 pages maybe. And we sent it out there as a beta test and gave it to people everywhere from the bartender at my favorite steakhouse to professionals I know. And we said, try this out. And we only have 3 questions. We don't need to know what your situation is, or we don't need a copy of your map. We just want to know the time you started the map, self-directed, the time you stopped, and did you have any movement from 1 to 10? And what we found fascinating is that people were finishing a self-guided map in about 60 minutes, plus or minus 2.
Oh, really?
And they were having movement, usually about 20% from where am I, where I want to be. So there's exhibit A, if you will. Exhibit B that I find really, I don't want to say fascinating. I find it disingenuous. I guess it's the D word, right? In my research over the years, I was watching some of these books I was reading that seemed to think like they were going to give a roadmap. Very few do. And I was noticing there's like a black market for workshops. A book will come out, and then about a week or two or a month or two later, there'll be 6 other workshop books that are not by the author, but kind of look similar. And I realized we have a workshop included in the book, so we included it.
Oh, wow.
So there's a physical roadmap that people can use in the privacy of their own home or organization, and we can guide them to the map if they want extra information. But it's all there, and even if they don't know why it works or how it works, it works.
How can CEOs and people in business management utilize this to build better teams?
There's a great. Well, I come from business. We built a pretty large business. One of my favorite topics in organizations is getting on the same page. In fact, there was a point that was going to be kind of the name of the book we thought. Usually, we'll hear organizations that are growing fast, whether organically or not, and you'll have an edict at some point, like we need to get on the same page. For example, a U.S. company buys an international company, and they find out they've got all these disparate systems and people have different cultures, but that getting on the same page is elusive. And nobody's really taught how to do it. And a lot of times it's a rhetorical question or a command, right? And then we get caught up in the relentless pace of urgent needs within the organization. We just forget about it. And one of the ways that this tool can be used in organizations incredibly effective is to help a team or entire organization get on the same page. And the way we do that is it's not complicated. And I think the world needs less complicated and simple. Let's say we work with a team, and we've done this numerous times. We work with a team. Everybody, we have a couple situations or the situation, and then everybody does a CoreSelf map individually before we get in the meeting on that topic or around that topic. And so each team member has had the chance to understand their position, understand where they think they should go, and come up with some ideas and brainstorm before we then we come to the meeting and we do what we call a 4S, CoreSelf positioning. We get on the same page together. We change the question from where am I to where do I want to be. And in an organization, CoreSelf positioning says, where are we and where do we want to be? And they leave with a physical page, a one sheet worksheet where everybody knows what the best next step is for the organization. But then each individual knows how they play into that and what their best next step is. So it has built-in accountability, which is a really hard thing in organizations, especially with salespeople. I was a salesperson, so I've earned the right. So it's really a lot of fun, if that makes any sense. But it's actually a tool, a single worksheet, 8 steps that can actually help people get on the same page, literally. And the other thing I would say about that is I like the metaphor of the train. We get in these meetings, and the people that talk the most are the leaders, or the managers, or the extroverts, right? Yeah. And this is a tool where we can have everybody as a participant in the meeting, not just a passenger on the train.
Because that's what a lot of people do in meetings. They'll tune out and they'll be like, I don't know about all this. And then, they're worrying about their own things. But a lot of organizations have that problem, having a unified message, unified marching orders, all the chips must sail in the same direction, that sort of thing. Is that a quote from The Godfather? And I love the movie The Godfather, and I'm just thinking, where the hell did I get that quote? All of our ships will sail in the same direction. Is that 1 or 2? I don't know. Anyway, just Marlon Brando quotes in the morning here on the Chris Voss Show. And tell us about some of the things you guys do at your website in helping people and organizations do their things. There's 2 websites if you want to dump the .coms or .orgs another time just for the plug of it?
Sure. CoreSelfPositioning.com is for the book. And that brings you to simplenoteasy.org, which is where we started 7+ years ago. Fun story about that, if I can't.
Sure.
We had just finished selling a company in 2 months, and now I know why you don't do it in 2 months, because you have no life with disclosures. However,
due diligence too.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I have 30 days to tell you everything about my business, and if I tell you whether you read it or not, you own it. If I miss something, I own it. Anyway. Yeah. I reached out to Jane, our attorney, after. I said, look, we got this idea about this new company. And can I just make it 2 or 3 pages? Because my partner's not the most technical person in the world. She goes, sure. She says, I'll just call it NewCo, which is short for new company in legal, until you know the name. And I said, no, I know what I want to name it. And she's like, what's that? She says, I said, I want to name it Simple Not Easy. And lawyers and accountants never call you back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, she calls you back. She goes, Tim, you'll never believe this. I did the search. Simple Not Easy is only available in one of 50 states, Massachusetts, which is where we incorporated. Yeah, isn't that exciting? So that was our first vision, that it was the perfect storm without the storm.
It was actually simple, but not easy, because now you got to get the other 49 states or something. Yeah, it's amazing. It's great when you can get those websites that are just perfect. And you're like,
oh, it's crazy.
Someone didn't take this that day. I was like, what? Anyway, and so what are some of the offerings people you do for who's your typical client? So if people listen to this on, like LinkedIn or other places, who's a typical client for you that you usually tend to help a lot with what the work you do?
Countless individuals. So that's always going to be there.
If you're a countless individual, folks, call now. 1-800-TIM.
I mean, this is a tool that any individual can use and to have movement. That's easy.
Okay.
My passion comes from business and organizations, because I think it's a win-win. An organization, and whether profit or nonprofit, they're all big, invest in a tool that they can get on the same page, get in alignment with their teams, either to get unstuck or to innovate. And we run that workshop, and it works. It's wonderful, and it's different, and it's a new language, if you will. But what I love about organizations is that they're giving each of their employees a tool they can use in their personal life. And I think about, even myself being married a few times. I always say in personal relationships, it's that first eye roll when somebody says something and the conversation's over. And this is a tool that it can keep, the emotions in the 8 steps, like the bottom circle, emotional energy and sensations, but we're putting that emotional energy on a scale of 1 to 10, which actually psychologically has a calming effect. And then we zoom out of in the next step, we zoom out of the situation, the emotional energy, and we go to values and practices and remind people, everybody, what is it that you do in times of high stress that with a high level of certainty is going to calm you down? It might be a walk in the park. It might be a cup of tea. It might be a beer and a pretzel.
Cocaine,
but
sure.
What I mean? And so there's this counterbalancing of heightened emotions with things that matter most. And then we can actually have a productive conversation of what are some actions or plans that either I or we could do together to get to a better place. So I love that win-win of organizations. I've had one person say it's kind of their social responsibility. That's a big one. But to give people a tool that they can use at work and they can use in their personal life, and it's the same tool, is pretty powerful, I think.
Is it a tool too that can help people get along better? If there's friction in relationships, whether they're in personal or at work, to kind of, you mentioned one thing, self-accountability, I think, and boy, is that hard to get people to get on board with these days. It's always blame, victim.
Well, and that's just part of somebody's, where are they? In the bottom circle, we've got critical, shame, blame as one of the components on the rim. And one of the interesting things about, I'm going to pivot for a minute and come back to what you said. When we find ourselves being critical of others, we're not really personally growing. We're blaming everybody else. And that was something I learned from one of my own children, which was scary. And I didn't realize that when you're working with organizations, generally everybody's trying to grow. If they're being critical, that arrow's pointing in, and they're being critical of themselves. Oh man, I should have done that. I should have done this. Man, I can't believe I was such a knucklehead. And you think, this is a touchy subject, but I have too many friends that, people that are going through addiction, they're incredibly critical of themselves, especially if it happened later in life. I had this great job, and then look what I did. Oh my God, right? Yeah. And that inner critic can be crazy, crazy high. And we're way better at beating ourselves up than others.
Yeah.
Expectations of others and self expectations of self is way more powerful than expectations of others, I think, unless you're a child. So, and I think I got off track with there. Your original question was, I'm getting too excited about the material.
All right.
I think you were asking about relationships.
Yeah, personal relationships, whether they're at work or, conflicts in relationships, because some people don't get along well at work or they rub each other wrong, but maybe this can help them get on the same page where they have like a shared vision, shared goals.
I think so. Yeah. I don't think so. I know so. I mean, getting on the same page or better relationships. I mean, this isn't as obvious as it sounds. It requires two people that want to get on the same page. So it's assuming that two people want to get on the same page and want a better relationship, which is a requirement.
Sure.
Then it's an absolute yes, because, to share my values and my ideas about a situation, and then to listen to yours, and then come together and come with a better solution is just huge. One of our slogans in the early days was making good relationships great. I'll say this about that. I just finished. Are you allowed to talk about other people's books on the show? Or
sure, yeah.
I just finished Mercurio's The Power of Mattering, a new book, really great. I think he really brings up a great point about people want to be nurtured and affirmed and needed. Where I disagree is it seems like the burden of that entire thing is on leadership and managers. And I have a fundamental belief that I think that we need to nurture, affirm, and need ourselves first, and then other people can add to that. But I think the other thing some of our work does is this concept of an accountability partner. If you and I were working at the same company, and we both sat and did a map or two or three, you might not see my map, but if you shared with me your top 2 or 3 goals in life, and they don't have to all be professional. No. If you and I just did an accountability check-in once a week, 5 minutes, and I said, hey, how are you doing? Let's just say one of the things you're working on was relationships, or it could be health. And I did nothing more than, hey, how's your goal in health going? And you could give me a number of 1 to 10. You could also give me a green light, yellow light, red light. And it's just a personal check-in to let me know that I know what's important to you because you've shared them with me. I'm just curious of how you're doing with that. And those little tiny tweaks down at the bottom would build organizations and even relationships personally in really easy way. Just a check-in. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I've seen a lot of CEOs do that where we check in with our employees and our managers and stuff. I used to call it touching the hearts and minds of people, but HR can't call it that anymore.
Well, you just can't use the word touching.
Yeah. It used to be okay to say that in the 90s, and then.
But you've got a great team. They're proactive. They're intact. I mean, the folks I've talked to.
Well, the ones I haven't fired. Yeah. So that can definitely help because sometimes when you're touching the hearts and minds of people, you're checking in with them. You're like, I learned a long time ago being a CEO, you've got to play psychologist, you've got to play marriage therapist, you got to play counselor, especially their salespeople, man. Those salespeople, when they're great, they kick ass and take names. They get a little bug in their head, man. You gotta play surgeon, and you got to go in there and figure out how to extricate whatever that sliver of whatever.
Well, you're on, and you have to be on all the time, even when you're having a bad day. But it's interesting. You talked about salespeople, so one of the workshops that we did, which I think this will say a lot about the positioning tool. So we go into this organization, and we've got 6 different salespeople. And in software sales, you're always, you've got your main products that you sell, but then you've got all the ancillary products. And so, and one of the ways to create a moat in business is for clients to have more than one of your products, not just one. And it's really easy for the competitors to steal them. So we go in there, and one of the big questions that salespeople have every year is, hey, what can we do to help you be more effective? And inevitably, for years after year after year, they all say the same thing: time management class. So we taught them time management ad nauseum. So we sit with these six individuals and we run through the map of how can you increase your performance and talk more about third-party products and be effective. And the topic was about time management. They'd all been in the same time management workshops for years. And each one of them, after doing their own individual CoreSelf map, each one of them came up with something uniquely different that a part of their mind, this internal observer, knew that they could and would do. And so the examples came up, like one gentleman said, right now I plan my week, I plan a weekend in advance. But if I plan 2 weeks in advance, I'd be better at time management. Another individual said, if I leverage my technical person more, I'd be more effective. And so what was fascinating about it and the learning experience is each one of them with the same training had a conversation with themselves and knew something that would impact their life from a time management standpoint. And it was unique for each of them.
So it really kind of helped unlock some of the subconscious things your brain works on to help us out.
Well, there's a part of your brain that knows what you will and won't do. And when we say it's the internal observer is a part of your conscious brain, that's really important because generally your subconscious, unconscious, I'm not a therapist, so I know enough to be dangerous, not to be accurate. But your subconscious, your unconscious, no, I'm not done telling you how bad it was. We always ask people, how are you? And we hear the word fine. And that word fine,
I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm fine. And it's just cordial. And you really don't have the time, and do you really care to ask? Or are you just looking for?
And I really don't care either. So.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
The wife hasn't talked to me in 2 days. And I'm just like, I honor this silent treatment. Keep it going. Yeah, give me another week if you would, please. Here's $100.
I was doing a math with a gentleman, right? So a triangle, right? Here's an example. The triangle. So he's at the top. His wife was on the bottom left. And sometimes it's not 2 other people involved in the situation. Sometimes it's an event.
Is that polygamy? If there are other people?
Oh, I don't mean that's I hear where you're going, but I'm not going to go there. So on the bottom right wasn't a person; it was an event called a cat. His wife had lost a cat after 17 years.
Oh,
and we're running through the map, and he goes, and no matter what I do, she's just highly emotionally and no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to work. In fact, the other day I asked her, "Do you want to just get another cat?" And she started crying even more.
Oh.
After 40 minutes and finishing a map, we get to the bottom, and he's like, "Wow, it's so obvious, and I missed it." He had not associated that the cat was a person. He just thought it was a thing.
Yeah.
And we finished the call, and he's like, "Do I just pay you as my therapist?" I'm like, "No, this was on us." I just wanted to see but that's the power of having a conversation with your internal observer and navigator, that it's watching what's going on. It knows your values. It knows your entire life experience.
Or your lack of values.
Well, when he started, he goes, we have a couple daughters. One's not very empathetic like I am, and the other one's like, this was an internal observer talking to him. And at one point, it let him know, you're just not very, and this is a real person to her. And
you're dead inside, buddy.
That seems silly that you'd use a map after losing a pet, but that's the power it can have. And in the early days, Jonathan was like, we need more stories in the book. We need more stories. I'm like, no, we don't. And I'm like, what are we going to tell? It sounds like a Batman comic. We listen to people on the other end of the phone. We don't see them. And they're like, ooh, wow. I never stopped down long enough to write I never slowed down long enough to write this down. And that's what most individual maps are about. We never have to know what the situation is, and it still works. In the professional world, it's easier because we know what the situation is. Mm-hmm. They know everything about their skill set, and the organization knows everything about their organization or their business.
There you go. And so you kind of map this out on your one website, simplenoteasy.org, and you show this CoreSelf map process, and you start with visualizing a difficult situation, and then moving it through different levels, and then you end up with a joint plan into action that you can execute on. So where am I now? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there?
Yes.
Yeah, that seems pretty simple,
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's intended to be simple, and I don't know how detailed we get into it. It's in the book as well. So it turns out that the psychology and neuroscience behind it, it works even if you don't know this. But this concept of an internal observer isn't new. William James, considered like the founder of psychology back in the 1870s, he discovered or he saw something which he referred to as the hidden self. He was over in France at a doctor. They were in an asylum. A bunch of women were running around screaming and had been through trauma. And the doctor over there put them under hypnosis, and he watched them all just calm down and have a normal conversation.
We should do that with the gals on TikTok.
Sorry. And then you move to the 1970s, and Hilgard and his wife are at Stanford, and Stanford gives them a whole division because Hilgard believes you can use hypnosis in therapy, but it's not when we don't understand something or science can't explain it, we don't use it. And so what Jonathan figured out how to do during his practice all those years is in an 8-step worksheet. He figured out how to activate an internal observer without hypnosis. Right. So I say that, I mean, that's the psychology behind it, but that's fascinating. Like I had my original partner when I started in business, golly, 20, 30 years ago, who cares? Hunter was an avid smoker. Like he just smoked all the time. And he would say, I can stop smoking anytime I want to. In fact, I've already stopped 7 times. And we were in Boston at the time. And it was we every day at 5, we'd go next door to the and we would talk about business as long as we could. And he went to see the hypnotist for smokers, I guess, somewhere in Boston. And he goes on a Thursday night, and he comes back Friday, and the traditional after 5, you want to go next door. And I'm like, well, there's gonna be a lot of people smoking, and it's Friday night in Boston, and things are. And he's like, he just looks at me like he's like, what? So what? Like it was like there was no desire, the hypnosis. There was no desire to smoke at all.
And that's really hard to do because those places usually trigger people that are trying to get rid.
That's why I didn't want to go. And he's like, he's just looking at me like I'm dumb. Like he's like, what's wrong with you? Anyway,
maybe you can use this more in like rehabs and stuff for people with trauma, things of that nature. Maybe.
Maybe there's a doctor here where I live, and he asked. There's work to be done, and other people to like. I'm looking forward to people putting on the fMRI and watching how people typically problem solve, and then watch what parts of their brain fire when they're doing a CoreSelf map.
Would you say this kind of helps people be better self-reflective, or have a map on, not really and have a map to being self-reflective so that they can practice better? Because I've been on Twitter and I've seen a lot of people that have zero self-reflection.
but off the charts pontificating.
One of them might be me, so who knows?
I don't know about that.
I'm not the smart one in the room.
I'm not going to name her, but there's other people are. Anyway, absolutely. The way the map works is you're taking a real situation. Everybody has a top of mind situation. I didn't believe that when I started. And so I would give people like a layup. It could just be how to be a better person or employee. And in 7+ years, no one's ever taken me up on that layup. They all think of a single specific situation that's top of mind that you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle together yet. And, within milliseconds, they're like, got one. I'm like, okay. And so what the map does is it takes inventory of where their energy is. And then it zooms out to things that matter most to them and the values, community, family, relationships, profession. And then it dials down into thoughts and plans. What are some things you could do to move closer to where you want to be? And this all sounds incredibly simple, but the conversation they're having with themselves upstairs is priceless. It's insightful. And then, and a lot of times people get halfway through the map. They're at step 4 and they're like, wow, that's an idea I never thought about. And we're like, keep going. Because what happens on the narrative side, the writing part of the map, is it dials in, it just dials in a real best next step. Because on the right side of the map, we add some things from a narrative standpoint that are happening in an observing standpoint, just not. So one of them is, or we call them strengths and struggles. So strengths, what are some resources that you can call on or count on to help you move closer where you want to be? And that's intentionally inward because, you and I, we can study, we can read a book. There's plenty of things we can do, but there's resources outside that can help us if we'll ask. And then strengths is the exact opposite of what it sounds like. One of the things that's very positive psychology based, we're not saying, tell me all the things that you tried that didn't work. Struggles are giving yourself effort for good faith efforts. Writing this book is a good faith effort. Do we know if it's going to be popular, if it's going to resonate with the world or not? No, but it's still a gift that we've given. And if they'll help themselves, then they can help others. That's one of my.
There you go. So it sounds like it really taps into that subconscious, I've always relied on the subconscious mind when sometimes I'm innovating. A lot of times you kind of give it a task. Like, well, if you can figure out how to solve whatever problem I'm trying to solve, innovation I'm trying to solve, how to round off the problem I have.
Yes.
Let me know in the morning and I'm going to go take a nap, right? You wake up in the morning and bing, there it is. Your subconscious like, here's that thing you're working on there, eh? And you're like, wow, magic. But it was working on your stuff there. And so this sounds like it's a better way to kind of jog that out of there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, to your point, so Doty writes a book recently called Mind Magic. And he talks about now neuroscience tells us how to manifest.
Magic.
But he talks a lot about the unconscious. And my partner, Jonathan's like, no. He's like, no. Here's the interesting thing. And I'm with you because so the map is a conscious part of your brain. And it's important for so many reasons. But once a map is done, then I'm with you. Then it does, I think, move to your subconscious and it keeps working on the situation to find a problem. I've noticed in my journaling, and now this is another area I'm testing and asking folks about. Like for me, when I journal, I know on average about 2.5 days after I'm struggling with a major situation or problem or challenge, that I'll have an insight that will just appear in my journaling. And I believe that each of us probably has a certain cadence. Like some people talk about that as the eureka or the ha moment, but those of us that come from creative, like I was an architect by trade when I started. Most of us, if you study creativity, and Rick Rubin did an amazing job in his book, we're defining what creativity is. And it talks about, grab all the data, get really close to it, absorb all the pieces of the puzzle that you can find in the resources, and then step back, but not too far back. And then let that part of your brain keep gestating and coming up with those eureka moments.
I like that. A map to gestate your brain.
And it doesn't take 52 weeks.
Yeah. It's also
it takes about 60 minutes.
I mean, any way you can cut that timeline down, and that's also my favorite heavy metal band, Brain Gestation. So anyway, their singles out now. It's called fuck that. Anyway, that sounds like a good song name. Sometimes I go down roads to set up a joke and I don't find the end of the road and there's another corner and I'm like, I'm not going down this road. So, I mean, this sounds like a great tool people can use to make their own creativity work personally, to get teams aligned, CEOs and management and all that good stuff. As we round out the show, give people your final pitch out. How can they onboard with you, reach out to get to know more with your programs, and the final pitch to pick up the book, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. I would say a couple things. If I was going to recap, Jonathan and I were just out in Rhode Island doing some filming a few months ago. And Jonathan, I think, captured a lot of this in a perfect way. He said, it's an outer challenge, meaning an inner drive, and then an inner resource that is taking external, an inner drive that's taking external resources to do something important, to have movement in something important. So it's this inside out. It's like outside in and then inside out. And that's and that's, in the book, figure 1.1 and 1.2 or the audibly accompanying PDF are two great illustrations, that talk about coaching and therapy or consultants. And the question it points out is who's asking and who's answering the questions, and that's really, I think, intense. So what I would encourage people to do is invest in themselves. The book's $30. The Audible's $20 and the ebook's $10. And I'm not doing it to pitch the book, but I think it'd be the best $10 you've ever spent. I mean, because the tool's there and it really is a roadmap. It's not a bunch of stuff telling you why it works. That's all in there, but it's after you do it. And you can find us at simplenoteasy.org or CoreSelfPositioning.com. CoreSelf's one word.
Well, this has been fun to have you on the show. And geez, wow, somebody finally figured out how to get right from point A to point B instead of like just kind of waiting around going, well, I hope I get a good idea the next 6 months or something. So,
anyway, I appreciate you, Chris. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Give us the .orgs one last time as we go out.
Simplenoteasy.org or selfpositioning.com.
There you go.
Either or.
And those links will be on the ChrisVossShow.com. Be sure to order the book wherever fine books are sold, CoreSelf Positioning, to get on the same page, literally 8 steps that refine our current position and identify our best action plan by Jonathan Thomas and Tim
Preston, who's joined us on the show today. Thanks for my audience for tuning in. Keep following 16 years and 24 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. My back is tired, and you're just saying that. It aches, but we'll try and do another 16 years and 2,400 episodes after that. So anyway, guys, tell your friends, neighbors, relatives to go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss won the TikTokity, or else. Don't make me come out there and pull the car over, folks. Refer the show. Anyway, guys, be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Good job.